People are pretty familiar with the term diffusion. I think it's become a household name in a lot of ways, but I think a lot of people don't associate it with text generation per se. So kind of curious, was there an aha moment where you guys realized that diffusion techniques could be applied to text that sort of said like, hey, this is it, we're onto something, we have to start a company? Or did this come after years of research? Or just walk us through sort of how this materialized?
So we've been obviously studying this problem for many years, and I think it was a very obvious open problem in the field of generative modeling. If you look at the kinds of algorithms that are used out there, anything that involves images or video or any kind of continuous data, currently all the state-of-the-art methods use this approach that you mentioned called diffusion, which came out of Stefano's lab, and that works extremely well. This was the first wave of generative AI with things like Stable Diffusion and Midjourney. These are all based on this diffusion technology. But this approach only works, or for the longest time, only worked well for continuous data, images, videos, and for discrete data. The state-of-the-art approach has always been autoregressive models. And there was always an open problem in the field for how do you get diffusion, how do you get this modern approach to work equally well on discrete generation and language generation. And so we've all been studying this problem for many years, and there was a bit of a breakthrough around 2023, early 2024, with a lot of work that came out of Stefano's group with SEDD, the SEDD paper. So that was kind of a really cool result where the performance of these models was for the first time shown to be within reach of autoregressive models. And then also in my group, we've been researching an approach called masking diffusion, which was in part motivated by AI for science applications. So modeling, biological sequences, we had grants on that. And that also seemed like the right approach for doing discrete data generation. And then when we tried it on a language, it also showed the same kind of great performance. And so we realized that now this could actually work, but we needed the resources and the capital and the team to make this happen and to actually show that this works at scale. So not on toy academic models, but on real production language models, we needed more resources, and that's what led us to start a company.
The one thing I would also add is, if you look at the history of language models in recent times, so there's been probably like 3 scaling laws that have determined progression. So there's been a scaling law around pre-training, there's been a scaling law around post-training, and finally test time inference. And diffusion is really unique because it offers advantages, especially when it comes to post-training and test time inference, that you don't see in autoregressive modeling. The reason is because when you have, let's say, trained a diffusion model, it's extremely fast. So you get about 5 to 10x speedups over autoregressive models. So there's post-training scaling law where, today most of post-training is determined by reinforcement learning, and reinforcement learning being bottlenecked by inference. If you had a really fast model, which you get with diffusion LLMs, we saw that in D1, and we've seen that's extremely powerful to scale these models, improve their quality, and that's how you can get a much better post-training routine using diffusion LLMs. And then the next thing that comes is that test time. How can you improve the quality of these models? There it's a similar approach. You have a faster DLLM that's going to search more in the same amount of time and get you higher quality. So across all 3 axes of quality, speed, and cost, diffusion LLMs dominate autoregressive LLMs. And that's how they can extend the frontier to a new technology that wasn't possible before.
Yeah, you mentioned reasoning. I think that's an important sort of monumental moment in the history of Inception. Talk a little bit about the Mercury 2 model and what that brings.
Yeah, so Mercury 2 is the first large-scale reasoning model based on diffusion. It's the world's fastest reasoning model as well in its class, and it gets extremely good trade-offs of quality and speed that were not possible earlier. And to come to this moment, we have taken 2 technologies at its very core, the idea of diffusion, training, and reinforcement learning, combine them into a single paradigm that is executed at scale to get to where we are